offerings that are invalid for the altar. Suli Hamizbeach. Okay, chapter 2. There are a total of 50 blemishes that disqualify both a man and an animal, and they've already been listed, right? They had that, yeah, 2 days ago. Number 2, there are other blemishes that are unique to animals. When we say barman means a kohen, right, a priest, that he has a blemish that disqualifies him from doing the daily service. He has other things that he can do, but not the daily service. And an animal, they're both blemishes on a human and an animal that disqualifies an animal that to be put on the altar. Right? Okay. So now there are other blemishes unique to animals that are not appropriate to be found in humans at all. There are 23 of these, and they are: an animal's eyeball are round like humans. As if they're not supposed to be round, in other words. Huh? Wow. Huh?
What shape is an animal's eyeball?
I don't know. Should have asked the eye doctor I went to yesterday. I don't know if she deals with animals, in their sight. Somehow I doubt it. One eye is larger like a calf's, and the other is small like a duck's. If, however, one ear is large and one ear is small, even if it's small as a bean, it is acceptable. Again, we're talking about animals here, right? If there's an eruption in the white of the eye, that there has a hair growing from it, so, right, not good. If the cartilage between the two nostrils were perforated in a place that can be seen, not good. Its mouth resembles that of a swine. Its upper jaw overlapped its lower jaw, even though it is not pointed like a spit. Wow. Gotta go back to the farm. Number 3. Huh?
Spherical shape. Animal.
Spherical? Okay. All right, next. If its outer tonsils were perforated, their substance was reduced even though a portion of them remained. They shriveled. The inner tonsils were removed. This is considered a blemish because when it opens its mouth and shriek, it has been seen that they are missing. Okay. If its horns and its inner fibrous tissue was removed and nothing of it remained, female animal. Okay, that's one. Female animal that has horns is acceptable. Why those two things together? I'm not certain. If the substance of the skin that covers the male organ of an animal was blemished, right? So not good. Thank you. The substance of female organ of an animal is blemished. If the substance of the tail is blemished from its bone, if the substance is blemished from the joint, it's not a blemish. The tip of the tail was split into two with two separate bones. If there was a finger's breadth of flesh between every joint on the tail, if the tail was overtly short, to what extent? For a kid, one vertebrae is a blemish, but not two. But two are not. Huh? Okay. For a lamb, the length of two vertebrae is a blemish, but 3 is acceptable. If the tail of a kid was soft and hanging loosely, like that of a pig, no good. If one of the tailbones was broken, also. If, however, one of the ribs is broken, it's acceptable because the blemish is not visible. A five-legged animal, no good. A three-legged animal. The hooves of one of its hinges or forelegs was round like that of a donkey, even if it's split hooves. All right. If the hooves of one of the hind legs or forelegs was not split like that of a donkey, is the meaning of the word kalud mentioned in the Torah. If its hooves are and the fibrous substance inside was shriveled, even though there remains some of the fibrous substance next to the flesh, also not good. Uh-huh. Okay. So 23 we just mentioned, 50 were mentioned in the previous a couple of days ago, and that gives us 73 altogether. Ugh, excuse me. Need to stretch. Right, that gives us 73 blemishes listed to disqualify an animal from being offered as a sacrifice. If an animal that is consecrated contracts one of these blemishes, right? So, you consecrated an animal, and it was complete, didn't have any blemish, but then it contracted a blemish. It should be redeemed, so you should buy it out, and it becomes an ordinary animal, with the exception of an animal that is old, sick, and foul smelling. Although such animals are unfit for sacrifice, they may not be redeemed, because these are not absolute blemishes. Old is not a blemish. Right. A fact of life, right? Instead, they should be maintained until they contract another permanent blemish. Then it should be redeemed. Similarly, a consecrated animal that contracts a temporary blemish should neither be redeemed nor sacrificed. So it can't be sacrificed because it's got a blemish, but it can't be redeemed because it's not permanently disqualified as a sacrifice. And that's like in no man's land. There are 4 temporary blemishes that disqualifies both man and animal: moist skin eruption, a boil that does not resemble those of Egypt, water that descends in the eye that is not a permanent condition, the generation of nerves in the eye that is not a permanent condition. So that's something that is both man and animal. These are 4 other ailments that is found in an animal prevented from being sacrificed. Rationality is such an animal is not from the choice. The verse says you should take from the choice of your animals, right? Muvchar. As it says, the sacrifice must come from the choices of your vows. They are an animal with an eruption of a white of its eye, but it does not have hair growing from it. The substances of horns of an animal was reduced, but their inner fibrous tissue remained. The substance of the inner tonsils were reduced, and the inner tonsils shriveled. If it is consecrated animal and one of the blemishes, it is neither sacrificed nor redeemed. Instead, it should be allowed to pasture until it contracts a disqualifying blemish. If it was sacrificed, it appears to me that it is acceptable, right? If it was mistakenly sacrificed. Okay. Similarly, when the transgression was performed with a consecrated animal, or it killed a person, right? An animal killed a person, but was observed only by one witness or by the owner, right? It 2 witnesses have to observe it in order that it should be sure in Isco. It is neither sacrificed nor redeemed until it contracts a permanent blemish. So it's also in a twilight zone, right? Because you can't, it doesn't get qualified as an animal that needs to be killed for killing a person. That's only with two witnesses. So it needs to be get another disqualifying, then it can be redeemed. When an animal contracts, one of the conditions that render it treif, remember that it's not going to live for live out the year. That's what treif means, and cause it to be forbidden to be eaten. It's forbidden to be sacrificed on the altar. Or behold, it is written, presented please to your governor. Would he be pleased with you or show you favor? Oh, although it is not fit to be sacrificed, it is not redeemed. The rationale is it is not redeem a sacrifice to feed the meat to the dogs. Instead, it should pasture until it dies and then be buried. So it's straight, so you can't eat it. So it can't go on the altar. All right. But it can't be redeemed. Why? Because when can you redeem an animal? When that animal you could eat. The fact that it's got that it's not proper for the altar doesn't mean it's not proper to be slaughtered and to be eaten, right? Two different sets of laws.
But it's
No, here though it's treif, which means you can't eat it. If it had an eyeball that was off, you could eat it because that's not treif, but it's not fit for the altar. In other words, fit for the altar is more demanding. It's non-blemished status, right? So over here we got a problem. What's the problem? The reason why you redeem it is because now it's going to be an ordinary animal that you could eat. But here it's treif, you can't eat it. So therefore you can't redeem it. So therefore you can't redeem it. Right. So you instead it goes to pasture until it dies and then you bury it. Why can't it be given to the dogs then? Oh no, because it's got holiness to it. Because you can't redeem it. So you can't give it to the dogs. It's got holiness to it, so you have to bury it.
Right, because it was consecrated.
Yeah, we're talking about consecrated.
It was consecrated, it cannot be redeemed, so it remains in that consecrated state.
Exactly. So you got to wait till it dies and then bury it. Because you can't redeem it. If you could read. Interesting. If it was slaughtered and discovered to betray, if it should be taken out of the place to the place of burning. So now you didn't know that it was, how do you know it's strafe? It's usually only when you slaughter it, right? Because then you check its lungs and you see it's got, what the condition of the lungs are, for example. And but here you only found out afterwards. So that animal, you can't eat it, can't be put on the altar. It's still consecrated, so it's got to be burnt. Why is it burnt instead of buried?
But it's already slaughtered. It was slaughtered and then
The place where the right.
as opposed to the animal being alive.
If the animal was known to be treif and slaughtered, then it should be buried rather than burned. But here it wasn't known. Okay, okay. Let's see, this also applies if it was discovered that one of the internal organs is lacking, even if it does not cause it to become a treif. For example, it only had one kidney, or its spleen was removed. That doesn't make it treif. Just like a person can live with one kidney, right? Such an animal is forbidden to be offered in the altar and must be burned. Rationale is because it is blemished, not because it is blemished, rather, not because it's blemished, but because the internal flaw is not considered a disqualifying blemish. Instead, the rationale is that the animal that is lacking an organ should never be offered as a sacrifice, says it has to be perfect. And an animal that has an extra organ is considered as if it was lacking one, therefore has 3 kidneys or 2 spleens, and is found in animals unacceptable. Interesting. So okay, 12. What is meant by a permanent degeneration of the nerves of the eye? The animal that was observed for 80 days and it did not see. We inspected 3 times. On the 27th day, from the time when difficulty was sensed, and the 54th day, and on the 80th day. If the sight returned and then it lost it again, we count from the time it stopped seeing. Wow. An eye doctor for the animals. My gosh. Too bad I didn't know this to tell my eye doctor yesterday. I could have tested her, how good of an eye doctor she is.
But these are for animals.
I know. That'd be a real test, right? All right, 13. How is it known that the water of the eyes are permanent? When it ate fresh grass from Rosh Chodesh Adar until the first half of Nisan, and then it ate dry grass in Elul in the first half of Tishrei, and it was not healed. This indicates that the water is permanent. Wow. My gosh. You are what you eat, right? In other words, the food that you eat is an indication of your condition. How much fresh grass must be eaten in the season for fresh grass and dry grass in the season for dry grass? At least an amount the size of a fig before his first meal in these 3 months. It must be eaten each day after drinking and must be free to roam in the field while eating. It should not be alone, but without another animal for company. If all of this was done and it is still not healed, the water is definitely permanent. Wow. If one of these factors is lacking, there is a doubt concerning the matter. The animal should be neither offered nor redeemed. So what is implied? It ate fresh grass as prescribed throughout Adar during the first half of Nisan. Then it ate dry grass as prescribed during the second half of Nisan and the month of Iyar. Thus, it ate the grasses for 3 months in a proper order, or it ate the fixed-size amount of grass after eating or before drinking, or it was tied alone or located in a garden near a city. If it was not healed after all of these treatments, there's an unresolved doubt whether the blemish is considered permanent or temporary. Hence, if one blemish in another manner is not liable for lashes. If you partook of the grasses in a prescribed manner during the prescribed times of eating, and it was not healed, it is considered as permanently blemished. Wow. 16. There's an unresolved doubt whether it is considered as permanently blemished from the time it contracted the condition or from the time it despaired of its discovery. Therefore, if someone redeems it before they despaired of its recovery and then derived benefit from the object used to redeem the animal after they despaired of its discovery, there's an unresolved doubt whether he derived unauthorized benefit from consecrated animals. Therefore, he does not bring a sacrifice to atone for his transgressions. It will be explained in the appropriate place. Wow. Okay. Folks, amazing. Thank you. God
Shabbat
bless you
shalom.
all.
Yes, everybody.